My fellow Americans, hello, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer, the board game review show that has lost its deterrence vis-a-vis the Dice Tower. Indeed, it can truly be said that there is, in fact, a board game gap. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the ghost of John Kennedy. Boo. Today, we're going to be taking a look at 1960, The Making of a President from GMT Games. In 1960, The Making of a President from GMT Games, two players take on the roles of John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Richard Milhouse Nixon as they vie for the presidency in that fateful year. And I gotta tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the election of 1960 was a kooky election. It was weird. It was wild. We will never have an election that is just as... Oh, yes. Yes. The game board is a map of the United States with all 50 states present, and they all have, of course, their electoral votes showing. They also show kind of which color the state would lean to naturally, either blue for Democrat or red for Republican. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to go ahead and put out a number of electoral point tokens, state seals with the tokens and the electoral points on them in each of the 50 states. You're also going to put a number of cubes of the specific color in that state if the board says to start that way. For instance, Kennedy is Massachusetts. His native Massachusetts is going to have 2 blue cubes. Players are also going to receive a pool of blue or red tokens, depending on their party. And you're also going to receive kind of your character. Nixon or Kennedy is represented by a little cylinder with an elephant or an ass on top. Now, what's going to happen is, over the course of the game, you're going to be trying to increase your influence, if you will, in the different states. You're going to try to of course, get to carry the states and then ultimately win the states on election night. Now, in rounds, 1 through 5, each player is going to receive 6 cards. Now, these cards can be played in different ways. They will all have an historical event on them, some event that actually happened during this race. Now, you can play it for the event if it matches your party. So if it has the picture of the ass on it and you're the Democrat, you can go ahead and play the card. If you're the Republican and it's got the elephant on it, you can play that card for the event. Now, if you can't play it for the event or you choose not to play it for the event, you can also play it for the campaign point total. There's a number of points on there, and then you can essentially play it for the campaign points. Now, if you play it for the campaign points, there's some different things you can do. First of all, you can put your cubes into the various states, essentially gaining influence in that state. Now, if the opposing player has cubes in a state you want to be at, you can eliminate one of your cubes to eliminate one of his cubes. They both return to the pool, and that way you can kind of knock down your opponent's influence in the state before you can start building up in that state. You can never have 2 players having their cubes in a state at the same time. Now, you can also spend a campaign point to essentially move in between regions. The map has 4 different regions. You have the East, the South, the Midwest, and the West. You also have Hawaii and Alaska off to the side. Anytime you move between regions or the 2 freak states, you have to expend 1 of your campaign points. Now, the advantage here is if you go into a specific state, you can kind of protect that state, and I'll explain how in a minute. But also, as you're moving around, you're going to see some more effects pop up in the game, and some of the cards may affect these things. Now, if ever you have 4 cubes in a state, you are carrying that state. If you ever have your cylinder, your presidential cylinder, in a specific state, then the player kind of has to act as though you're carrying that state, even if he's in there with you. What that means is, instead of, if you're looking at a state that has your opponent's cubes, if they're carrying it, or if their candidate is there, instead of just placing out on a one-for-one basis, you have to do kind of a check, a voter check, a support check. And how that works is you've got a bag. And now in that bag is a number of cubes, and you reach in the cube and you try to find, of course, your color. If you get your color, you can begin eliminating your opponent just as if you had played a cube there ordinarily. If it's the opponent's color, he just puts it back in his pool, but it doesn't change the state. So it's a little tricky. There's some chance if you're trying to go against a state that your opponent is carrying, or again, his candidate is there. Now, also, you can spend campaign points to get by advertising. You can attempt it by advertising in a certain area. That means that you are kind of immune to having to do skill checks under those circumstances if you have kind of the majority of advertising in that region. You can also attempt to kind of, instead of spending on those other things, you can attempt to dominate the issues. Now, there are three basic issues in this game, main issues: defense, civil rights, and the economy. You can put one of your tokens down on any one of those issues at a cost of just one token. But the second token you place down is going to cost you 2 points. So the first one's 1 point, the second one is 2 points, regardless if you're going on the same one on the same turn. If you come back, you do it on another turn, it's just 1 to lay it down that first time. But it increases, so you can't get too powerful on any one turn. You're going to have to kind of, over the course of your turns, decide what's more important, the issues or the board. Now, the issues are going to be important, as we'll see, and they're going to kind of change up areas, spaces on the board. They're going to move back and forth. What's the most important one? And that, as I say, is going to come into play and be very important a little later in the game. Now, also, too, on your card, you have a rest number. Now, that rest number is a number of cubes you're going to put in your rest area. That's important because at the end of the round, you're going to put those rest cubes back in the bag, and that's going to help you with the support checks. Now, when you play a card that is not your event, but is your opponent's event, your opponent can choose to expend a momentum token to activate that event. So you can be shooting yourself in the foot if you want to play for those campaign points, or you don't have any choice, you got to play for those campaign points. Your opponent can activate that card by spending a momentum token. You can preempt that, however. If you spend 2 momentum tokens, you can essentially say you can't play the event. Even if they've got momentum tokens to burn, if you've preempted it with your 2 momentum tokens, they don't get the event. They're out of luck. Now, after you go back and forth and you play 5 of those cards, you're going to have 1 card left over. That card is going to go in your campaign strategy. Now, ideally, you're going to want to play a card that has a high number. It's also going to have the symbol of the economy, the defense, or civil rights. And you want your party picture to be on that card. So what's going to happen is, as we get closer to the debates, you're going to get more and more cards there, and these cards are going to be crucial in your campaign strategy for your debates. You do the first 5 rounds doing this, playing the cards back and forth, getting everything set up. And then at the end of each of those rounds, you're going to go and do some specific things. Now, at the end of each phase, you're going to, first of all, kind of decay your momentum. You got to get rid of half your momentum tokens, rounded down. Next, the player with the most media coverage on the board, he can go ahead and shift 2 of the issues to adjacent issues, change their position. Now, for leading the issues, you're going to get different things. You're going to get momentum, you're going to get momentum and an endorsement, or you're going to get momentum and an endorsement, depending on which ones you lead. Those momentum tokens are very important, and endorsement essentially acts like media support, just like if you placed a cube there. Now, you go on to the next round. You're going to choose initiative at the beginning of each round. Person's going to draw out 2 cubes, or keep drawing cubes. As soon as 2 of one color comes out, then that person has the initiative. They can decide who goes first and who goes second in the round. Now, when you get to round 6, it's not a regular round. Rather, it is the debate. So what you're going to do is you've got a little debate card that you're going to place your cards next to. You're going to place one, then your opponent's going to place one, and you're placing them next to the specific issues. Again, you want them to add high numbers with your symbol so you can place it on your side. Now, as you place these cards, as soon as one of the issues receives 2 cards, somebody's played 2 cards on it, that one immediately is off the board. You can't play that issue again. Then you go to the next one. That one goes immediately on the board. Then the last one goes immediately on the board. Whoever wins those specific initiatives is going to, or debate, is going to get certain advantages as a result of the debate going into the next round. Now, in round 7 and 8, now you get 7 cards. You're still only going to play back and forth 5, but you place 2 cards in your campaign strategy section on the board. Your campaign strategy is a little different now because those cards have states on them. Every card has a specific state on it. Those states you play are going to give you free support checks at the end of the round to try to knock your opponent down, hopefully move you up on election night. Finally, in round 8, you have election night. Now, some of the cards you have played may have election night, may have persistent effects, and may have election night kind of trigger things that happen on election night. But essentially, election night is scoring. It's how you score the game and how the different kind of campaign strategies you've played out have worked, and if there's any cards that have been in the election night box if they're going to come into play as well. Essentially, you're going to add up your media support, put an equal number of cubes into the bag for the media support you control. Then those cards, those cubes are going to go into the bag. You get cubes for your momentum markers; they go in the bag. Now, you do an initiative check to see who does their campaign strategy first. Once you do the campaign strategy, you go through the 4 cards in your campaign strategy deck, you look at those states on them, and you can do 3 free support checks in those states. So this can really change up how things are going. Any events in the Election Day box are then played, and they may trigger and change the board up on their own. Finally, players are going to look at all of the states on the board. They're going to grab the tokens, the seals, off of each state that they control. You're going to add them together. There may be the unpledged electors card in there that can kind of throw a bit of a monkey wrench in the process there. But otherwise, you're going to go ahead, you're going to add them up. The magic number here was, I think, 269 for the electoral majority. But you're going to go ahead, add all of the seals up. Whoever has the most, whoever wins the election there, wins the game. 1960, the making of a president. So 1960, Making of the President is a game that came out, I think, about 10 years ago, originally. I know Z-Man Games produced it at one point. I don't know if they did it originally or who did. But this is a game that has been on my radar for years. Ever since I played Twilight Struggle, which is one of my favorite games, and 1989, one of my favorite games, I've wanted to play 1960. I love this theme. I've taught college history, and I love talking about presidential elections, particularly 1960. This was a great one. So many things happened. First televised election was during this race. The whole missile gap fiasco was during this debate. So many interesting things happened during this election that I'm just excited about it. And I was so excited to see this game, see the mechanics that are similar to Twilight Struggle. Really excited to play this game. When I heard GMT was going to reprint it, I was ecstatic because GMT does a great job in presentation. They do a great job in artwork and in cards. And I don't think I've ever played a GMT game that left me wanting as far as components and what have you. I really like GMT as a production game. I also like them as a mechanics game company as well. So, for me, this was a question of, is this game going to live up to kind of maybe what I built it up to in my mind? Well, I sat down, I play this game, go through the steps, and I was scared. I was kind of getting nervous. Was it going to be too complicated for me? I'm like, well, no, it's not going to be too complicated. It's like Twilight Struggle, and it's not. It's not very complicated at all. It's easy to learn, easy to play. And what I found is, like Twilight Struggle, like 1989, the heart of this game is the tough choices it makes you make. Do I give up ground in one state for the hope of maybe winning on an issue, or do I move my guy to the West Coast? While it may mean I'm sacrificing media support in the South. There's just all sorts of questions like that come up in this game, and you've got to make those decisions and those tough calls, and then yet there's still an element of chance, of unpredictability here in this election. So of course I'm going to tell you, this game is solid. This is a solid game. This game not only met my expectations, it exceeded them. How did it exceed them? I don't know. It just did. It's better than I thought. It was more fun and more interesting, and I guess it was more. There was more flavor here than I was expecting, more theme than I was expecting. And I was expecting there to be theme, but I didn't expect this much. The cards, the event cards, are just brilliant. And my hat's off to the designers for the research here. It's just brilliant. I love the theme of this game, but I love the mechanics of this game. I love the knocking a cube out, and we both got to eliminate them. Dominaire, I played Dominaire again recently. It kind of has that same thing with cubes, where it's area control, and you got to knock cubes out to put yours in. And I love that system because it's tough and it's angry and it's so good. And I love that here. And just with the combination of this wonderful theme that I love and these great mechanics that I love. And I love the momentum, how, like in Twilight Struggle, your opposing event just triggers. Here, you got to sacrifice something to get that to trigger. And I like that. Should I play this card? Do I think he's going to go for it, or do I think he's not? Should I play this card now thinking he'll trigger this one so he won't have the momentum to trigger a bigger one later? I love these decisions. I love this game. I love it. If you haven't played Twilight Struggle in 1989, play those games too. Play this one. Now, do I like this one as much as the other two? I got to be honest. I actually haven't played Twilight Struggle or 1989 in probably over a year. It's been a while since I played them, and I keep saying I need to hit them again. Do I like it better? I think this one's more accessible, and I like that about it because I think it's probably maybe a little bit simpler than those others, maybe. But it just with the theme, I think people are really going to get behind it that maybe wouldn't get behind Twilight Struggle in 1989, maybe. So I feel like it's more accessible. I don't know. I got to play this one some more. Played it a few times now. Got to play it some more. I'm probably going to say I like it as much as those others. Probably. From now on, when I talk about Twilight Struggle 1989, I got to say Twilight Struggle 1989, 1960. Because to me, they're very similar games, but they're each their own game. But they're of that same family. And I love them all individually and collectively. No brainer. Guys, please take my word on this one. This one is fun. I know years ago, Shut Up and Sit Down reviewed it. They didn't care for it. I love it. I love this game. Please buy it. Thank you once again for joining us today on The Discriminating Gamer. As always, we ask you to please leave a comment for us on YouTube, on Board Game Geek, on our Facebook page, or on thediscriminatinggamer.com. We ask you to please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter. We are The Discriminating Gamer. And just remember, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't do it. And I promise I'll never do it again.
Please somebody help me on my feet again. And I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band.
Wow, what's the fastest one? You're definitely moving on to the next round. You are definitely moving on to the next round.